Let's take a look at the Dynasty stock market at these three wide receivers that you might want to buy or sell in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And if you're new to this series, each week I look at three wide receivers and their values, look at real trades, and just go over the market with you so you can determine what you want to do with these players. You want to buy, sell, hold. It's ultimately up to you. There's multiple different ways to play the game, so I try and hit this from a broad point of view. That way you get a good angle of it. If you want a certain player mentioned in a future video, let me know in the comment section, and I'll do a video on that player as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of these videos, because I try and pump out 2 of these a week, if not a little bit more. But let's go ahead and get started. Our first wide receiver that we're going to talk about today is very expensive. And we like to go with an expensive guy first and work our way down the list. And this guy has been productive ever since he was a rookie. And I'm talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Detroit Lions. Right now, he's being drafted as 10th overall in startup ADP as the wide receiver 6. He's 23 years old, and last year he had 5 wide receiver 1 games, 3 wide receiver 2 games, 12 games with double-digit fantasy scoring. So he hit up 10 or more fantasy points in 12 games. He's a very productive wide receiver. Had a 28% target share and had a 25% share of the air yards while having 59 air yards per game. Good volume there. Getting a lot of targets. Is fueling his production. Good players get targets. Around 30% is elite. So really he's at an elite portion of target share. This is why he's able to be so productive on a consistent basis in fantasy. Averaged 2.4 yards per out ran. He also averaged 5.1 yards after the catch per reception. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been productive. He should be productive going forward. I don't see why he shouldn't be. Jared Goff's still going to be there. They like to push it downfield. This is a fun offense. I look for him to be productive for as long as he's going to be, because I think he's a good wide receiver. Going to the trade finder over at dynastyleaguefootball.com, let's look at some real trades that has involved. So usually we try to keep it more like 1-for-1. The big trades are really hard to evaluate. when it comes to context. So we try to keep it simple. One trade here is Javonte Williams, Darnell Mooney for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Trey McBride, 106 and 306 for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Mark Andrews, Alvin Kamara, and Zach Wilson, 1 QB. Christian Watson, Daniel Jones, and 107 for Amon-Ra. Tyreek Hill straight up. Javonte Williams straight up. 108, 201, 302 for him. For him, Alvin Kamara, Calvin Ridley, and 205. Then we got Aaron Jones, Isaiah Pacheco, and Jahan Dotson. For the most part, he's very expensive, but when you look through some of these trades, you can definitely find him for some discounts here. He's a guy you may want to kick the tires at if you're interested in him, because the value's all over the place. But you know your league if you can or not. You know the managers. So if you think you're in a league where it could slide, maybe you can catch a discount. But more than likely not. He's a highly valued wide receiver. We're seeing him go for some discounts here, like Javonte Williams, players like that. But also we're seeing them be expensive, and we're expecting that. I don't expect the discounts. Maybe like a couple out every 100 leagues, every 200-300 leagues, something like that. We're going to see that, but I expect him to be expensive. I expect him to catch a bag. If you need to rebuild, you want to try and catch a bag for him, but you want to build your team around talented young wide receivers who have a lot of years left in front of them. He's got that. You want to build around a wide receiver like this. Ultimately, you want him and a few others like that. That's the goal in Dynasty. That way you can build your team for multiple years. Highly coveted player. Again, top tier players. You want to sell those guys for pieces, high-end assets, and more likely for when you want to rebuild. Trying to buy them, you got to save up to get them. But in this instance here, compared to other high-end wide receivers, there's a chance you can catch them for a discount. And you may want to look for that. Let's move on to our next wide receiver. This guy's been productive on and off throughout his career. He's been a staple in fantasy football for a little bit. We're talking about Mike Williams from the Chargers. He's 28 years old, being drafted right now, 74th overall, wide receiver 38. Last year had 4 wide receiver 1 games, 2 wide receiver 2 games, 8 games with double-digit fantasy scoring. I always bring that up because when your player scores double digits in the box score for your fantasy league, you kind of get a good feeling. Usually, it's not good enough if it's like 10, 11, 12 points. But again, you see that in the box score, you kind of get some sweet nothings out of it. So I kind of bring that up because there is a little bit of value to it, even though it's not a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1. I kind of want to shed some light on that. So we had 8 games like that. Also, 19% target share, 33% share of the air yards, and 72 air yards per game. Had some injuries last year. Mike Williams has always had some injuries off and on throughout his career. That's just part of his makeup. Part of him coming out of Clemson, he had that big neck injury. That's just something about the stock that you're getting in with him. There's a potential that he's not with the Chargers for much longer because he's got a potential out on his contract at the end of 23. So once the season's over, him at 29 years old could be testing the waters in free agency. That's something you want to pay attention to if you're buying his stock. Looking at the trade finder, we saw 1-for-1 with him for James Cook. Him dealt for 304 and 305. Him dealt straight up for the 303. Him dealt for the 212 and 306. Him dealt for 2/3. Rashad Bateman. Looks like the value's zapped here. Looks like you're not going to get much out of him on the trade market unless you really want to unload. Unless you really want to dig back into the 3rd round, maybe late 2nd round. Thing about this is the Chargers offense Herbert go burr in the passing game, so you may want him for a year or 2. And you know what? A couple thirds might be worth it for you. Maybe you need an extra wide receiver. Maybe you just need a piece on your team to get you 4 wide receiver 1 weeks and a few productive weeks to help you out. Maybe you got to start a lot of wide receivers. Maybe you're starting like 5 or 6 and you need some extra ones. Maybe this is a guy you can get for 2023. Maybe for 2024. Who knows? But the value is on the cheap right now to buy. And if you're going to sell, you may want to use him in a package. You may want to use him, another pick, another player, maybe pick and player to get another wide receiver that's a little more expensive to get what you want. Or a running back, whatever you want. Use him to package up. Use him in a pick to package up a few spots in your draft. Maybe that'll work out for you. James Cook seems like a smart idea, depending on what happens after this draft. But he's a young player, getting some work, a couple thirds. You may want to just use him as a package up piece to get more value than that. If I was buying him, a couple thirds would be interesting. If I'm a win now team and I need an extra piece, especially if I'm starting a lot of wide receivers, help me get through the season. Again, he's a risky asset. He's an older wide receiver. He's also experienced a lot of injuries throughout his career. Moving on to this next wide receiver, and we're on to the bottom of the list in ADP. And this guy's dirt cheap. He's free, but he's in an interesting situation you may want to look at here, and that's Laviska Shenault from the Carolina Panthers. Right now, he's being drafted as the 256th player off the board and the wide receiver 105. He's free. He is free. If you want him, you just go get him. He had 2 wide receiver 2 weeks last year. He's had 2 600-yard seasons on his name when he was in Jacksonville. He also had a 100-target season to his name as well. DJ Moore is gone. It's him, Terrace Marshall, Shi Smith, Preston Williams. They're drafting a quarterback. Then their next pick is until 39th overall in the 2nd round. In that area, they're looking at the 5th to 7th best wide receiver on the board. So the wide receiver class is going to be tapped out. And this free agent wide receiver class is weak. You can go check my video on this wide receiver class and free agency. Go check to see who's available. It's not very good. So the odds of them adding talent right now isn't good. It isn't a good sign unless they go trade for somebody. There's no trades involved with him in Dynasty. He hasn't been productive the last few years. Hasn't been fantasy relevant, but this is a situation that might go well for him. New coaching staff. They might want to give him some extra looks. Not much competition. So if things are going to happen, it better happen now. He's been forgotten about. He's free. This is what I say about free players. If you like them, you go get them. They are free. You can get them as a throw-in in another trade. So if you're looking to trade for somebody else that you actually want, Laviska Shenault's on that dude's team, just say, hey, can you throw in Laviska Shenault? And they'll probably do that because he's so free. He's so forgotten about. He's probably on your waivers right now. Go take a look at that, depending on the size of your league. The upside is pretty good, and he may even get some snaps at running back because he's a thick boy and he's got some speed to burn. He's so cheap, it doesn't matter. You can only roster so many of these cheap guys. I'm giving you one a week, but he's so cheap. If you're interested, if you liked him coming out of the draft a few years ago, this might be your time. More than likely not. But again, if you're going to speculate, you better speculate when it's free anyways. And if you lose out, you lost out on nothing. That's what I'm thinking about that. So we do have some opportunities here. We do see a story of how this can turn into a good situation for him. He does have 100 targets on a season to his name, 2 600-yard years. So it's not like he has been flat broke on you. It's not like he's Jalen Reagor. He has shown some signs of life. This fish has been flopping in the sand for a little bit. Maybe he can work his way back in the ocean. Maybe he can. Maybe he can swim on you a little bit. But Laviska Shenault is a player you may want to look at if you're interested. But those are the 3 wide receivers we're looking at this week. We're testing the markets. We're kicking the tires. We're seeing what deals we can get done. Let me know in the comments below who you're looking to trade after, who you want me to add on the next video. I'll look them up for you. But make sure you smash that subscribe button on the way out. It's only going to help you going forward. I'm doing these videos all the time. Also, tons of content on this rookie draft class, from mock drafts, player profiles, and anything else I can find, really, because you're getting about 1, 2, 3 a day. But I want to thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.